No woman is going to walk over to you, look you in the eye, and say, "I find you attractive. Your move." That is simply not how human attraction communicates itself. What she will do instead is something far more subtle, far more instinctive, and far more revealing. She will touch something. And if you don't know what to look for, you'll never realize the moment passed, because by the time you figure it out, she's already redirected her attention toward the man who was actually paying attention. Here's the part that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Research published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior determined that more than 90% of the emotional information exchanged between two people occurs without a single spoken word. 90%. That means the most meaningful conversation she is currently having with you isn't happening verbally. It's being expressed through her body, through her movements, her posture, and most significantly, through what she does with her hands. And the vast majority of men are completely untrained in reading that language. So let me be straightforward with you. As a woman, I can tell you with full confidence that we are nowhere near as difficult to decode as men tend to believe. We actually broadcast an enormous amount of information through the things we instinctively touch, the gestures we make without thinking, and where our hands naturally migrate when we are genuinely attracted to someone. The challenge isn't that women are impossible to understand. The challenge is that no one ever handed you the translation guide. Today, that changes. What I'm walking you through in this video is not recycled surface-level dating advice. This is grounded in legitimate behavioral psychology, drawn from research conducted at institutions including Harvard, Princeton, and the Kinsey Institute. I spent considerable time reviewing clinical studies, expert analyses in nonverbal communication, and honestly, reflecting on my own experience as a woman who has unknowingly exhibited every single one of these behaviors. Before we get into the first signal, I want to flag something important. The final signal on this list, number 8, is the one that trips men up the most consistently. Not because it's hard to spot, but because it looks like the opposite of what it actually is. Most men read it as indifference, even disengagement. But when a woman does it, it typically means she's already mentally imagining what it would be like to be with you. Stay until the end, because that one insight alone has the potential to completely transform how you interpret your interactions with women going forward. Let's get into it. Signal 1. She touches her hair. The first thing a woman reaches for when she's genuinely attracted to someone standing in front of her is her own hair. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Everyone has heard this one. But here is what most people have not heard. There is a critical distinction between a woman brushing her hair aside because it fell across her face and a woman repeatedly interacting with her hair because you are what's holding her attention. Dr. David Givens, director of the Center for Nonverbal Studies and a researcher with over 3 decades of work in human courtship behavior, has documented repeated hair touching as one of the most ancient and biologically consistent signals of attraction in our species. This is not a conscious choice. When the brain releases dopamine and norepinephrine in response to attraction, nervous energy floods the body, and the hands instinctively travel toward the hair. How do you tell the difference? A single casual hair adjustment is grooming. But if she keeps returning to it, twisting a strand around her finger, sweeping it deliberately to one side, pulling it back to expose her neck, that is not accidental behavior. That is her nervous system announcing itself. And that mention of the neck brings us directly to the next signal, which is arguably even more revealing. Signal 2. She touches her neck or collarbone. When a woman lightly grazes her neck or traces along her collarbone while you're in conversation with her, something very deliberate is occurring beneath the surface. The neck is one of the most physiologically vulnerable regions of the human body. Major arteries run close to the skin's surface there. From a deeply rooted evolutionary standpoint, drawing attention to or exposing the neck is a signal of both trust and openness. Without words, she is communicating that she feels safe in your presence and that she wants you to notice her in a way that goes beyond the surface. Behavioral researcher Vanessa Van Edwards of the Science of People Research Lab has documented that neck-touching behaviors in women during interactions with men they find attractive increase by nearly 300% compared to interactions with men they have no interest in. 300%. That is not a behavioral quirk. That is biology operating with remarkable precision. And here's a candid detail from lived experience. When I notice I've been touching my neck around a man I'm attracted to, I rarely realize I've been doing it until the conversation has already ended. It is that involuntary. So when you observe this, believe what you're seeing, because her body is being significantly more honest than her words are likely to be. Signal 3. She draws attention to her lips. This one is quiet, but it carries an enormous amount of weight. When a woman lightly presses a finger to her lips, runs her tongue slowly across her lower lip, bites it gently, or applies lip balm while sustaining eye contact with you, she is not simply attending to dryness. She is drawing a spotlight toward one of the most sensory-loaded features of the human face, and she is doing it intentionally, even when the intention is subconscious. Research from the University of Manchester, using precise eye-tracking technology, found that men direct approximately 43% of their visual attention toward a woman's lips when observing her face, particularly when the lips are a contrasting color. Women have understood this instinctively for centuries. The entire cultural and commercial history of lipstick is built on this single biological truth. Make the lips visible, and you make yourself unforgettable. When she reaches for her lips in front of you, she is amplifying a signal that your nervous system is already hardwired to respond to. She is placing emphasis on the one feature she knows already holds your attention. If that does not register as an invitation, I'm not sure what would. Signal 4. She fidgets with her jewelry. This is one of the most underestimated signals in existence, and it is remarkably common. If a woman begins playing with a necklace, spinning a ring on her finger, or tugging lightly at an earring during your conversation, take note. That behavior is a direct window into what her nervous system is experiencing. Behavioral psychologists categorize this as a self-soothing displacement behavior. It emerges when the body is processing a significant surge of internal arousal, excitement, nervous energy, attraction, and requires a physical outlet to manage that emotional charge. The jewelry becomes the release valve for the energy that your presence is generating inside her. Dr. Albert Mehrabian's foundational research on communication and emotional engagement found that self-touching behaviors increase substantially when someone is emotionally activated in a conversation. The stronger the attraction, the more she needs her hands to be occupied. And when those hands keep returning to a necklace positioned near her chest, she is, whether consciously or not, directing your gaze precisely where she wants it. That one is worth sitting with for a moment. Signal 5. She initiates physical contact. We've now moved from self-touching into direct contact, and this is where ambiguity disappears almost entirely. If a woman reaches out and touches your arm, briefly rests her hand on your shoulder, or makes contact with your hand during conversation, she has just crossed a significant social boundary, and she did it intentionally. Research from DePaul University established that brief, voluntary physical contact during a social interaction directly increases the receiving person's perception of warmth, trust, and connection toward the person who initiated the touch. When she makes that move, she isn't only expressing interest. She is actively trying to strengthen the emotional bond forming between you. It's both an expression and a strategy, and it is remarkably effective. Here is something honest from a woman's perspective. When I reach out and touch someone's arm during a conversation and receive zero response, no returned warmth, no lean in, no acknowledgement, it feels like extending your hand for a handshake and watching the other person simply stare at it. It is genuinely deflating. So, gentlemen, if a woman touches your arm, the correct response is not paralysis. Acknowledge it. Lean into the moment. Mirror the gesture. She just communicated everything you needed to know without a single word, and the only thing left is for you to receive it. Signal 6. She interacts with objects nearby. This one operates almost entirely beneath conscious awareness, and most men never pick up on it at all. When you're seated across from a woman at a restaurant, a cafe, a bar, watch what her hands do with whatever object is in front of her. If she is slowly circling the rim of a glass, running a finger along the edge of her cup, or tracing the stem of a wine glass in an unhurried, deliberate way, that is not idle distraction. Former FBI behavioral analyst and body language authority Joe Navarro has written extensively about object interaction during conversation as a reliable indicator of deep emotional engagement and frequently sexual interest. The object in her hand becomes a surrogate. She is channeling the physical energy of attraction into something tangible, because the relationship hasn't yet reached the point where she can direct that energy toward you. So the glass receives all the attention she genuinely wants to give you. If a woman is doing this, holding eye contact and smiling while you talk, and you still can't read the room, watch this video again. With love. Signal 7. She adjusts or smooths her clothing. When a woman begins straightening her top, smoothing her skirt, pulling at a sleeve, or checking that her outfit is sitting correctly while she's talking to you or after she notices you walk in, she is engaging in one of the oldest courtship behaviors in the animal kingdom. Evolutionary biologist and ornithologist Jeffrey Miller has drawn compelling parallels between this human behavior and the preening rituals observed across species before a potential mate. This is not vanity. This is biology responding to perceived opportunity. She wants to present the most favorable version of herself to you specifically. Because at an instinctual level, she is motivated by your attention and your selection. Context is everything here. If she was already adjusting her clothing before you arrived, that's normal self-care. But if the behavior starts or intensifies once she's aware of your presence or once you're in direct conversation, that is a targeted, attraction-driven response. The fact that she cares this deeply about how she appears in your eyes tells a complete story on its own. Signal 8. She frames her face while listening to you. Now here is the signal I mentioned at the opening, the one most men read entirely backwards. When a woman rests her chin gently in her hand, cradles her face, or lightly touches her cheek while you're speaking, the overwhelming majority of men interpret this as disengagement. They assume she's tired, bored, or mentally checked out of the conversation. That interpretation is almost always wrong. What she is actually doing is called facial framing, and it is among the most intimate self-touch behaviors a person can display in a social context. Dr. Monica Moore, a psychologist at Webster University, conducted a landmark observational study tracking over 200 women in social environments and identified more than 52 distinct nonverbal flirting behaviors. Facial self-touching, specifically chin resting and cheek cradling, appeared consistently in the top 10 most frequently observed signals among women who were visibly engaged with and attracted to a male conversation partner. The psychology behind it is elegant. By framing her face with her hands, she is unconsciously inviting you to look at her eyes, her expressions, the subtle shifts in her smile. She is saying, without words, "Look at me." Not just at me, see me. It is a signal rooted in vulnerability and comfort. It tends to surface only when she feels genuinely safe and at ease in someone's presence, which makes it one of the most authentic indicators of deep, genuine attraction. So if you have ever sat across from a woman, chin in hand, eyes on yours, quietly smiling as you spoke, and you thought she was losing interest? She wasn't losing interest. She was falling for you, and you missed it. Here is what every signal on this list has in common. Not one of them involved a single word. That is precisely why they go unnoticed. We are conditioned to process what people say, but the body communicates first, and it communicates with far less filtering. A woman's words might tell you she's just being friendly, but her hands, her posture, and the unconscious choreography of her gestures are telling you the full, unedited truth. Now that you have this knowledge, the responsibility is clear. Not to manipulate or to assume, but to genuinely pay attention. The next time you're in a conversation and you notice her twisting her hair, reaching toward her neck, playing with a necklace, adjusting her clothing, or resting her face in her hands while her eyes hold yours, don't stand there uncertain. Recognize what is happening. Respond to it. Because she has already traveled halfway across the bridge toward you. All that's left is for you to meet her there.